How would you like to do 10,000 personal training sessions in 6 months? Someone just said, hell no. But wait, there's more. All right. So I also will share with you in my 38 years of full-time fitness industry experience, I can include a 6.5-year period of time as personal training director for a multi-site. There were 3 locations fitness center where I was supervising on average, a little lower, sometimes a little higher, others about 20 personal trainers. And during that time, our conservative count suggests that I probably supervised 250 personal training sessions during that time. If the title of this episode got your attention, you might be wondering how. And let's say how, not why. But you also might be wondering what kind of profit margin there is, or if you're skeptical, like me, how personal the sessions truly are, then stay tuned. Answers to all those and more inside this interview episode. And questions for you. Do you want to be the Walmart, the lowest price to as many people as possible? Do you want to be the Nordstroms, the higher price to fewer, higher quality clients potentially? What are the pros and cons of each? Is there a downside to either? And the answer is probably yes. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to She Means Fitness Business. This is the place where we share marketing and sales strategies for your fitness or your health coaching business. And from time to time, I also share the behind the scenes content of how I specifically have helped and niched for the last 10 years. Women who are flipping 50, who are in menopause, and train menopause fitness specialists so that they can build a business similarly on their own. But today, it's all of really behind the scenes. How do you build a business? How do you get a good concept for your business? Where does it come from? And really stay tuned to the end as we talk about this internet-based business and what the founder says about his experience and expertise on the internet, because you're going to want to hear it. I promise you. And I cannot wait to introduce you to my guest. Joshua Ford is the CEO and co-founder of HipTrain. It's a VC-backed, that means venture capital-backed startup that provides live one-on-one personal training sessions for just $6.99 per 30-minute session. Prior to HipTrain, he helped build Uber, you heard me right, and Candid, and worked at the White House. Joshua was a Fulbright scholar and is passionate about providing affordability and accessibility, particularly in health and wellness, to the masses. Let's dive into this episode. Joshua, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Okay,
well, you have a pretty impressive bio. So not everybody not every day do I read, has worked in the White House, has helped build Uber. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, what was your role in building Uber? And you're going to have to tell me what is Candid?
Sure. Well, I already like you, Deborah, so I'm looking forward to this time. So yeah, I was one of a ton of people that helped build Uber. And I think actually one of the really amazing things that Uber did was decentralize the operations of the company. And so, you had some really, really smart people who founded the business and were in San Francisco, but then you had literally thousands of people around the globe who were in charge of cities and in charge of verticals within the business. And so I was leading strategic partnerships in Latin America for Uber. So I was based in Mexico City. My boss was in San Francisco. And then I had a team throughout Latin America. And so I was predominantly focused on how do we better equip our drivers to be successful on the platform. So how do they acquire cars more effectively at a more affordable price point? How do they get car insurance? How do they get fuel? How do they get cell phone plans? So all that good stuff that allows folks to come on the platform and make a living for themselves.
Very cool. And what about Candid? First of all, tell me what it is.
Sure. Yeah, so Candid is a clear aligner service. So Invisalign is kind of the famous one that's been around for 20 years. And Candid, what Candid did was bring that direct to consumer. And so instead of having to go to a physical location with a doctor, you could actually originally you could order a kit, you'd bite down on that kit and then send it to our dental lab, and then that would be sent to an orthodontist who would treat you remotely. And then mail you the aligners in the mail. And then we opened up brick and mortar locations. And then we actually pivoted the business back to you actually go through a doctor. And the difference is now you do go to the doctor's office, but the price point is much, much more affordable than a traditional Invisalign treatment. So you get the same type of technology and the same type of treatment, but just at a much more affordable price point.
Very, very cool. And last but not least, what role did you have in the White House?
Sure. I was a lowly intern at the White House. But I worked in a really interesting...
Does that mean get coffee, or what does that mean?
Sometimes. Yes.
Okay.
Generally, I was not tasked with getting coffee, but I worked in the Commission on Remembrance, which is actually the only nonpartisan part of the White House. And so I worked during the Obama years, but we worked really closely with John McCain, and that was right after Obama had beaten him in the general election. And so there was a lot of kind of working with both Republicans and Democrats and independents. And our whole job was to help remember those we lost in military service and work with their families. And so we would, just as an example, we took a family who had lost their dad in Iraq to a Taylor Swift concert, and they got to go backstage and they got to meet the performers. Memorial Day was kind of the big day that we worked on. So, we led the moment of silence nationally. We would have all these different initiatives to make sure that those who gave the ultimate sacrifice were not forgotten.
Wow. Okay. So I'm leaving somewhat of a pregnant pause here. Because I'm thinking this is quite a segue, and I am going to be quite amazing if I segue this, but how in the heck did you then transition to personal training?
Yeah, it's well, I think that there is one theme in my life, and that is that I've always chased adventure, and I've always really liked exploring. I've really liked people and working with people, and I think personal training is one of those things where, and for everybody listening that is a personal trainer or has had a personal trainer, I think you'll quickly understand this, but a personal trainer is not just for the physical part, right? Mm-hmm. There's a huge emotional component. There's a huge mental component to it. And a personal trainer really becomes someone's friend, their therapist, their trainer. We had one of our clients call her trainer her hairdresser, and she said that her whole life she's dreamed of going to the hairdresser on a weekly basis, but her hair just doesn't grow fast enough to warrant that. And so with her trainer, she actually can go and kind of have that proverbial relationship with someone who she can talk about her partner with and her kids with and her in-laws about, and just kind of in that circle of trust. So, I think for me personally, I've always really been interested in health and wellness and fitness. When I was 18 years old, I took a gap year, and instead of going straight to college, I took a year off and went to Ecuador. And I didn't speak. I actually didn't have a passport before doing that. So I got my first passport. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. I got down there and got to teach English and play in a semi-professional soccer league there. And, so fitness has always been a part of my life. And, it's always been something that's really critical for me. And then, as I lived more of my adult life in Latin America, I just started to see this massive opportunity to connect people in different regions around the world to get them more earning opportunities on one side, right? So on the personal trainer side, that they can make more money. And then on the client side, give opportunities to afford things that a lot of people just can't afford, right? Both my parents were teachers, right? So for them to have a personal trainer was just never really in the equation, right? That we just didn't have that amount of money to go and spend on something. But, my belief is that everybody could benefit from a coach, whether that's a meditation coach, a yoga instructor, a personal trainer. And so that's really why our mission at Hip Train is to make it as affordable and accessible for folks to have one.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So say something about the name. hip train?
Yeah, this is a question that we get asked a lot. And to be very honest with you, it's a little bit of a stretch, so you got to hang in there with me. We wanted it to be kind of cool or hip to train. So we we called it Hip Train. And
Do I hear Huey Lewis in the background? Or?
Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly right. So someday you'll see us in we haven't done this yet, but we'll be in 80s neon, big hair, and we'll put together some funny video about Hip Train. But that was the genesis of the name.
Okay. No, I'm so glad. I mean, I'm 58. I get it. That's where I was. I was like, I better ask if there's something else.
Yeah, no, that's it. And it's one of those things where you're in the room with your founders, with your co-founders, and you're all a little bit loopy after a long day of work, and you're like, what the heck are we going to call ourselves? And you start looking at domain names, and you start looking at trademarks, and then you start falling in love with this crazy name, Hip Train. So that's what happened to us.
Very cool. I love it. And I love that it's short and kind of just catchy. It's easy to remember. So lots to love about that. But I really want to dive into. So we led with the title, and either trainers and health coaches tuned in because they were thinking this is crazy, far-fetched, or they're like, yeah, how do I do that? I don't know. Did you personally provide over 10,000 personal training sessions in 6 months?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
So I did not personally do that. We have a team of trainers. So we have about 50 trainers on the platform. Mm-hmm. It was definitely not just me. And now actually we've even accelerated. So we just crossed 13,000 earlier this week.
Wow.
So we've continued to accelerate that. And, obviously as our client base grows, we also need to grow our trainer base.
Okay. So I'm just going to throw this out there. $6.99 per session. That is not all that attractive to a lot of our listeners. Many of us prefer 3 digits before the decimal point.
Sure.
So how are you going to make doing 10,000 at $6.99 sound sexy?
Yeah.
Go.
Great question. Yeah. So the key for our model is that, like I said in the beginning, we connect people in different geographies, right? And so all of those sessions that we're talking about are done via video conference, right? So none of them are in person. Mm-hmm. So our whole model is based on video conferences. And so what it enables us to do is connect people that are certified trainers that speak English in Argentina, for example, or in Mexico, for example, or in Germany, for example, that want to train people from New York to LA to Fairbanks, Alaska. And so what we're able to do is, essentially teleport people into your living room or into a gym that you go to or into your hotel room or out in the park to train you, all done via video conference.
Very cool. So who are your trainers? I mean, how are you able to hire them for $6.99 for 30 minutes? Pay them, and I would guess in your model of some kind, you might have bills and
Sure.
You want a profit margin.
Sure.
How does that all work?
Yes, we do have bills, unfortunately. So I wish if we could figure out how to get rid of them, that would be even better, but we haven't figured that out yet. So essentially what we do is we find people in geographies that have a much lower cost. And so our whole mission actually is to create unparalleled economic opportunities for our trainers, right? And so they're living in places where there just isn't a market, or they're supplementing what they can get in person, right? So they can work when they want to work on the platform. Mm-hmm. And so many of our trainers, or actually most of our trainers, will have in-person clients. They'll do group fitness classes. Some are lifeguards, some are some are phys ed teachers, some work at universities, right? They have a different job. And then this is, supplemental income. However, for the majority of our trainers, this is their main earning source. And so one of the things that's really cool about Hip Train is that we can help people utilize the hours that they have as dead hours, right? So for folks listening that are trainers themselves, this is something that I think we've all seen is, it's really easy to, or maybe not easy, but it's easier to get people in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. Before you go to work. And it's really good to get people after work. Right. But from, call it 9:30 a.m. until 5:30 p.m., it's really, really hard to get clients. And, many people will have to go to different gyms or to people's houses and really have to, stretch to get those clients. And so one of the things that we can help with, given that we have clients all over the place is, when people are waking up in Atlanta, they'll get served by our trainers, and then they'll go to work, and then the people in Iowa are going to wake up and they'll be served by our trainers, and the people in Oregon are going to be served by our trainers. So we're able to kind of provide classes to our trainers throughout the day.
Definitely makes sense. Yeah. And more and more sense as you're saying it. So my question to you is, were you here? Was Hip Train here pre-pandemic?
No. Yeah, I wish.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been amazing. And really Hip Train, wasn't created as a product of the pandemic either, right? And so it wasn't that we were in COVID and said, oh, this is amazing, like let's create a business off of this, because, as we're seeing, the world snaps back pretty quickly, right? And so you put yourself in a really dangerous position if you're a pandemic business, right? So I do think one of the things that happened in the pandemic is that everybody became far more comfortable with technology, right? And I think about my parents as an example, not technologically super native, not super savvy, but for 2 years, everything they did, from, attending a cooking class to talking to their kids to talking to their friends, was all done via technology, right? They were like locked inside their house. All the work that they did was all through technology. And so what that has enabled us to do is, our whole model is via video conference. And so I think that what the pandemic did do for us is just lower the barrier in people's minds on what it's like to do things remotely.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, great model. And love everything that you just said there about the risk potentially for if you built your business during the pandemic on pandemic times. We were definitely solving different problems.
Yeah.
And yet you'd still need to keep pivoting, because now we're in a moment where we've got to solve the right now problems.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the hard part about being an entrepreneur or a business owner is just, obviously the pandemic hopefully doesn't happen on a regular basis, right? But there are always things that are changing, and, regulations change, and technology changes that, what worked 10 years ago. And I think about this even in my own career, right? Like what I was doing 10 years ago in terms of marketing, like just doesn't work today. Right? It's a totally different approach. And so you constantly have to reinvent yourself and reinvent your business.
Totally agree. So I'm going to flip back just a little bit. So what's the average qualification of your trainers? How much experience do they have?
Yeah. So we have a couple things that to become a trainer on the platform. The first thing is that you've got to be certified by a third-party certification program. So that's number one. The second thing is you have to be fluent in English, right? Like I said, many of these trainers do not live in English-speaking countries. And so you'll send a video to us speaking in English, and our team will evaluate your fluency there. And then you actually have to do 4 different sessions with 4 different people. And I like to joke around that it's a little bit like American Idol. So everybody has a veto vote. So if any of those 4 people think that you're not up to par and not up to kind of the Hip Train standards, unfortunately, we will not onboard that trainer onto the platform. So that's kind of how we get there. Now, in terms of years of experience, we have some people with 25 years of experience, and we've got some people with 2 years of experience, right? So we don't have a hard, you need X number of years of experience, but we do have a pretty arduous process to become a trainer onto the platform, right? It's not like, Airbnb where you can just list your house and, you're on, right? So, and then as you're on the platform, we get 5-star ratings after every single session. So just like an Uber ride, the client is prompted with that 5-star system. We actually have product testers that go and take classes with trainers as like fake customers, right? And so they'll
secret shoppers.
Exactly right. So they'll
always wanted to be one of those.
Well, you can come on the platform and be a secret shopper, and so they give us a ton of feedback. We obviously are looking at retention of clients, right? And seeing, okay, when we give people clients, do they keep them, and do they keep coming back for more? And so those are just kind of the ways that we ensure that quality is held, not just to get onto the platform, but also indoors. Because at the end of the day, if someone comes to Hip Train, they trust us to give them an incredible trainer. And if we fail in that, we don't really have much of a business.
Great point. And part of the reason I was asking, not just for interest sake, but for multiple reasons, I guess for listeners who are out there, how would you qualify at some point if you're going to scale and grow your business? You run out of time. And
Yep.
then you at some point run out of ceiling where you can keep raising your rates.
Yep.
So in order to scale, it will benefit you and benefit others so much if you hire additional coaches to work with you or for you. So thoughts, things you might want to think through yourself about how this happened. Or if you're working in a brick and mortar business, you happen to be the director or trainer or want to take it to the top and say, these might be some ideas we want to explore.
Yeah,
But
I think that's a great idea.
for you, Joshua, my question is, what about liability for you as the owner? I mean, that's a lot of sessions. That's a lot of clients.
Yeah, so it is. Yeah, it's a lot. We have a lot of clients, and we've done a lot of sessions, and we have a lot of trainers, right? And so, it's critical that we, when we onboard people, that they approve, our policies and waivers and things like that. But at the end of the day, a lot of it's just communicating with trainers and making sure that you have top quality trainers, right? And that the best trainers know when to push you and they know when to not push you, right? And they know, and again, when we think about kind of working out alone versus working out with a certified professional, one of the huge advantages of working out with a professional is that they're going to minimize the injuries that people are going to have, right? They're going to correct your form in real time. They're going to make sure you don't pull out your back because you haven't, you have bad form, or you added way too much weight to your workout, or you haven't lifted weights in a while and you're kind of gone, off the deep end and now are trying to lift up a car, right? And so yeah, it's really, really important to us that people are safe on the platform, that they have, full medical clearance on the to work out, right? We have some people who are coming back from an injury, right? Maybe a torn ACL. And so the first thing we want to make sure is that they've been medically cleared before they just start taking classes.
Yeah, great answer. All right, I want to kind of flip for a little bit and ask you, so that listeners who are starting their own business, trying to scale their own business, and maybe swimming in the overwhelm of all the things to do. Because as we both know, when you first start, most of us wear all the hats. How do you personally create healthy habits around the work that has to be done?
Yeah, this is a really, really good question. And it's one that I will be honest that it's always a work in progress for me, right? So making sure that you take care of yourself, like if you're broken, then it's going to be really hard for you to lead an organization or lead people, right? And so you've got to make sure that you don't empty yourself out and don't just burn yourself out. I think for me, there's a couple things that I do. One is I work out every day. And for me, it's always been more of a mental thing than it is a physical thing, right? And, I'm one of those people that on vacation, the first thing that I want to do is go and, get a workout in. And that's really just so that my mind quiets down the rest of the day and I can enjoy the beach or the city or wherever we are. So, for me, physical exercise is definitely important. I've really found meditation to be helpful. And that's something that I'm still, I would say, a novice in. We actually introduced meditation as part of the Hip Train offering as well. And so, and that's been a big, for me, it's been a huge help of just finding time to set aside 15 minutes to just quiet your mind down. And I think one of the things that you're alluding to, Deborah, is that as a business owner and entrepreneur, there's a billion things that we can do, right? Like I'm never really done with work, right? Like I may be done with like the most urgent or pressing issues, but there are literally a billion things. I could not sleep the rest of my life and still not finish all of the things that I could do for my business, right? And so at some point, you kind of just got to understand like, okay, I need to go for a walk now. I need to have dinner now. I need to, reset. And so for me, those are just some of the things that I do. But I think the other thing that I would suggest is, go and find a couple other people who get it, right? Who are, it's always good to have mentors that have done this prior and they can give you some advice. But I also think it's really helpful to have people who are in it right now, who are dealing with it. I'm in a WhatsApp group with two of my friends. All of us started our businesses right around the same time. And, it really is, even though it's not really supposed to be this, it's really an emotional support group, right? When we have a shitty day or when we have a really good day, we kind of ping the others, and they get it, right? Because they've also had those days and they're having them, right alongside me.
Yeah, very cool. I think it's so true. I think you may have family, you may have friends, and yet, like if you're in this thing, they don't quite understand. They can't grasp it because
That's
it's not
right.
like you're walking into a building or an office, or, there's just a different piece of it. It is so good to be able to say to somebody, why is everybody else in the world crazy except for us,
Yeah, that's right. And I think just like, being able to, I think a lot of times with friends and family, they'll say like, oh, like, are you making any money yet? Or like, oh, you only make a couple $100, like it takes time, these things, right? And other entrepreneurs get that, right? And they're like, oh man, like you're doing it. You're fine. Like you're good. Don't worry. But I think sometimes you can be really discouraged by, external folks who don't really get it and who haven't been, like that great quote about like the man in the arena, right? And the only person that really understands it are people who are in the arena, right? And, so I think finding people who can kind of be those sounding boards for you. And again, most of the time, it's not so much like, how do you do this? It's mostly just a venting channel for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is so very valuable. Okay. So this model that you came up with, when did it get born? Where was the inspiration for this is a great thing? I mean, I can kind of draw a parallel in what you did with Uber. I mean,
Sure.
Was that the seed that was planted, or where'd it come from?
Yeah. So, absolutely. When I was at Uber, I remember distinctly going to San Francisco, reporting to my boss, and, essentially going through driver earnings and looking at what drivers earned on a weekly basis. And, the bottom line was it wasn't very much. And part of that was that we didn't charge very much. So if you were to take a Uber from the airport in Mexico City to downtown, it would cost you about $6 to $7 US, right? And so when you factor, and that's like a 45-minute to an hour ride, right? So when you factor in just the gas alone, you're really just like not making any money as a driver. And so I remember saying, man, if we could just teleport our drivers from Mexico City and Medellin and Bogota and Buenos Aires and bring them up to Los Angeles and San Diego and New York and Dallas and all of these other places, we could cut prices in half for the US consumer. And these people would be kings, right? They'd come up in the morning, come back at night, and we just teleport them, and it'd be a really amazing thing. Unfortunately, obviously, we did not invent teleportation. That would be a really fun podcast to do. So stay tuned. Maybe I need like back. 30 more years. Yeah. But, so the seed of it started there, and I didn't really know necessarily what vertical or even like what was going to be my version of teleportation. But really, we do use our video conferencing as kind of our substitute for teleportation. So it started there. And then, obviously in the pandemic, everybody who was working out was doing it remotely. And whether that was streaming services or connecting via FaceTime or Zoom or Google Meets. And so all of a sudden, kind of like the pieces started coming together, and we were like, okay, like this is kind of interesting. And, started testing it ourselves and had a few friends started testing it. And all of a sudden we were like, wait a second, like they're still working out. Like my friend is still working out the trainer, and the trainer's still coming back, and everybody's happy. Right. And like, this is great. Like we actually like found a solution here. Should we start actually building a business? Right. So we really didn't necessarily go into it as, okay, we're going to build a business and we're going to try to do 13,000 sessions in the first, in the first 8 months. Right. It really just was, we want this to exist in the world. And, I think other people want it to exist in the world. And so when you feel those two things, I think as an entrepreneur, it's really hard to not go build it. Right. And that's like, you almost like trap yourself into, you got to build this thing now because I want it to exist and all these other people want it to exist. Well, then like, who am I to deprive people of building this?
Very cool. Okay. So for the techies who are listening out there, they will be miffed if I don't ask this. Sure. Now, if you go too deep, my eyeballs will be rolling back in my head. I want it to happen. I just don't need to know how. So how does it work? So let's say you're trying to attract or let the world know this is an option. If you've thought there's nothing for you, hip train is an option, an affordable option for you. What does a consumer do, and or what does a trainer do who'd like to train for you?
Sure. So we'll do the client first, and then we'll do the trainer. So if someone's interested in trying it out, you just can go to hiptrain.com. You'll fill out a really quick, easy form that will just tell us what you're looking for, any injuries that you have, anything that we should know, the style of trainer that you want. And then our concierges, who are real humans, right? There's no artificial intelligence there. We'll take a look at what you've written and what you're looking for and when you want to train, right? So the days of the week and the times that you want to train. And they will pair you with one of our trainers, and they'll set you up your first week. We actually give the first week for free for everybody to try it out. There's no credit card required. There's nothing there. And then you'll have your first sessions and you'll connect. We do have an iOS app you can download in the App Store, or you can just do it on your browser, right? So on your computer, a lot of people will cast it to their TV screen, so it's even bigger. You can do it on your iPad. You can do it on your Android device on the web browser. So you can really do it on anything that's connected to the internet. And then you'll set it up and you'll get to know your trainer. They'll get to know you, and you'll work out that first session. And so, there will be some back and forth and get to know you, but really you'll jump in and they'll get to see what you want to do and start building a program for you. And then you'll work out with that person. And so one of the key parts of the way this works, which is very different than Uber, is every single time you work out with the same trainer, right? And so they know
Nice.
you, they build a relationship with you, and they really care, right? They care about not just you and your fitness journey and your wellness journey, but also just you as a human, right? Like they'll get to know your pets, they'll get to know your kids, they'll get to know your friends, right? You'll work out with them in a hotel room, you'll work out with them at your parents' house, right? So they'll kind of travel with you wherever and really become someone that you love and care about.
Yeah.
And then any questions on that part before I jump to the trainer side?
No, I was just going to add a point, and this is probably a valid point everybody listening can totally identify with. But I remember being a manager of a multi-site facility, supervising the personal training sessions, and the owners and I would sit down and realize we had a problem. Like if our trainer went on vacation or went on maternity leave, like that client thought they were just not going to train because they didn't want a different trainer. So we thought it would be so brilliant. Let's just use interchangeable trainers and let's just have someone have 2 or 3 trainers. Never worked.
Mm-hmm.
They want that one, the relationship. And I totally can see if I were the consumer, I'd feel the exact same way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting when we talk to our members and we do our customer discovery calls. People rarely talk about fitness with us, right? I'm calling to just ask, how their experience has been. What can we do better? And I really hear nothing about the fitness side. What I hear about is the relationship they have with their trainer, right? And how they, and generally speaking, our average customer is working out with their trainer at least 2 times a week, right? So if you think about how many people do you spend 30 minutes or 60 minutes on a live one-on-one video conference with 2 or 3 times a week.
Not even your mother.
Week. Exactly. Right? Like literally, like I talk to my trainer more than I talk to my mom, and I'm sorry, Mom, but
I know, right?
Right. But you really you start looking around and you say, okay, well, they're now kind of automatically in my top 10 group of people that I talk to.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree. Okay. I've got a question. So not necessarily the number of trainers, but how many of those real people behind the scenes, how many people are at that admin exec level with your company?
Yeah. So we have a team of 7 people at HipTrain that kind of help power all of these sessions, right? So obviously our trainers are giving the sessions, but all of the calendar work, all of the billing work, all of the building the technology, all of the troubleshooting, all of the kind of logistics takes a Herculean effort of those 7 folks.
What was the biggest lesson you learned building this?
Oh, wow. I have so many. I think at the end of the day, it's really understanding what people want, right? And again, that will surprise you a lot of times, right? And so you kind of have in your head, oh, this is what people want, or people really want, X, Y, or Z. And one of those is what we just talked about. It's like what people really want is a relationship with someone, right? And that's what they're coming to us for. And that's why they come back week after week after week for months on end, it's not that they don't have other fitness solutions, right? And there are, I mean, everybody listening knows this. Like there are literally millions of fitness solutions out there, right? Whether those are free YouTube videos, the connected hardware companies, big box gyms, boutique gyms, just go for a run outside, go play a sport outside, right? There's so many different options. But I think that like what sets personal training apart is that relationship component. And, what I've kind of realized a couple months in was that really what we offer is accountability as a service, right? And helping people stay on track and keep working out on a regular basis. And that's why people come to us. It's not because they don't know how to do a sit-up for the most part, right? Like they know how to do a sit-up. It's just that, they need someone to help prompt them do a sit-up.
Very cool. Although you chose a really bad exercise. So everybody here knows sit-ups are my nemesis, but that's okay.
Well, it could have been worse. It could be burpees or something horrible.
Yeah,
So.
Yes, burpees. Exactly. That is horrible. But I also, while you're talking, I want to drive this home for everybody listening that it's so true that listening is so big, but really what you were talking to as well was it pays for you to be authentic in your advertising, in your marketing, and just to be you because you want to attract those people you are most going to like working with and who will be liking working with you because it is not just a means to a physical end, for helping somebody with prehab or post rehab after a knee surgery. It's so much more. And that relationship is gold. And it starts with you just being you in everything you say and the way that you say and relate it. Okay, Josh. So, given your history, track record, and I haven't even asked this, although I want to really badly, how old you are. Okay. I'll put it out there. You can say it or not say it. What's next? Because I know you're not done.
Yeah. Well, I am in my 30s still, so I'm proud to say that. I'm not going to be able to say that for much, much longer. But so, yeah, I mean, this is, I hope that I get another 40, 50, 60 years to keep working on really interesting things. So I think for me, like, there's a couple themes that I really care about. One of them is the affordability and accessibility piece and really creating premium services for folks of all income levels. So that's something that I really care about. And I think that will be something that I continue to want to work in and provide for folks. I think the other thing, obviously the international component, right? I've always been really intrigued by how we connect people. And that doesn't have to be international either, right? That can be right here in the United States of connecting people of different backgrounds and different beliefs and different you name it, right? And so I think that connecting people is something really important to me. And I think that like ultimately just I like solving problems, right? And that's what in many ways that's what personal trainers do, right? They help people kind of get to the bottom of problems and solve them. And I think that's definitely what entrepreneurs do, right? My job is to kind of go out into the world and think about how can we make this a better world, right? And there's something very inherently optimistic about being an entrepreneur. And, for me, I think it's just, you kind of go out there and say, okay, why does things work this way? Or why do I get so frustrated when I stand in line in this place? Or, why is this not good? And then the way that my mind works is, well, like, how do I make it better? Right. So, I think that this is, hopefully we'll build Hip Train and continue to build and continue to affect people in a really positive way on both sides, both our trainers and our clients. But yeah, I think that, hopefully this is just, one of the things that I'll go and build and help bring to the world.
Fantastic. So while you're talking, I have one last question.
Sure.
And that is based on what you've said and what is so very important to you. Do you have any idea? And if you're not tracking this, my friend, I think you should be. But do you have any idea what % of people you're providing service to who were not exercising consistently prior to starting Hip Train?
Yeah. Well, we know that 98% of our members have never had a personal trainer before, right? So almost nobody has had a personal trainer before. And then about 60% of people were working out what they call infrequently or not at all. So we define that in the kind of intake form as, 2 to 4 times a month, or not at all being 0, right? So a slight majority categorize themselves as that. And then, of course, we have also some people who were Olympians and, are working out all the time. And, people who were 3-sport athletes in high school, or people who, are incredibly active. And so it's been fun to see the different types of people on the platform of, from this is their first time off the couch in a while to, they don't sit on the couch, right? They just go on their treadmill all day long.
Very cool. That's a pretty good statistic there. 98% never use a personal trainer, and also 60% infrequently or not working out at all. You're making a big difference.
Well, we're trying to, and we hope that we'll get more and more folks too.
Where's the best place for listeners to follow you, look over your shoulder, see what else you're doing, or find out when it comes up, what's next?
Yeah, sure. So, you can always go to hiptrain.com if you want info on the business. If you want info on me, I'm a little bit less easy to find. I'm not too prolific on the internet, but LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. So if you just find Joshua Ford at HipTrain, by all means, connect with me. And I'm happy to, like I said, I have an enormous amount of respect and empathy for anybody that's an entrepreneur. So if there are ways that I can help, or, you want to run an idea by me, I'm happy to connect you with other people in my network. And so, I'm only here because a lot of people have helped me along the way. So if I can pay that back at all, I'm happy to do it.
I could not love that more. I am not very prolific at the internet. From the founder of an internet-based business. So if you're listening and you have any reservations about starting an online training business, remember this. Just dream, do the vision. You don't have to know the how when you start.
It's so true. And it really is, I can maneuver myself around the internet pretty well, but I don't have a huge social media presence. I don't really, I've never had an Instagram actually personally, nor do I want one. So I've been on Facebook, 3 times in the last 10 years. So yeah, I think it's a great point. Like, you don't have to, and there are a lot of different services out there, or people that you can connect with that can help kind of round out, your gaps. And that's really been my story of, know what you're really good at and do it really well, but also really know what you're not so good at, and don't try to do that, right? And don't waste your time and your energy, and just partner with people that can help you there.
Fantastic advice. Joshua, it's been so great to have you. Thank you for being here.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Okay, listeners, now it's up to you. So you're going to find the show notes at fitnessmarketingmastery.com/10,000 personal training sessions. And I'd love for you to add a question or a comment down below. You're going to also, by the way, find all the links to connect with Joshua or whoever it is that does the magic behind his social media, now that we know it's not actually him. But given what we've heard today, my guess is you're going to find it's very authentic and probably worth following, because he's got some great solutions here. So what are you waiting for? The world needs us right now more than ever.